are so many people out there who want to volunteer and find a way in which they can help.
We've got some brilliant people that have come out of the school system here in Attleboro.
You actually perform as an elected official the way people should.
There are no agendas. Nobody has any projects that they have to complete, but we're just sharing information.
Welcome to People It's Good to Know. I'm your host, John Davis, and this week we're fortunate to have a really talented guest with us today. We have Kaylyn Furtado, who is the Community Engagement Manager for the City of Attleboro, a role that we've been in need of for decades, and Kaylyn has come along and done a great job in the time she's been here. Could you first, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, because as you know, it's the people that we most want to interview are the ones who are so busy because they're doing things. Why don't you tell the public a little bit about your background and you know, where you came from and eventually how you ended up here?
Yeah. So I'm Massachusetts born and bred. My dad actually did serve in the military a little bit, so I was, lived in Louisiana and New York for a little bit as well. But do not remember those days whatsoever. But happy to state that, I've traveled a little bit, I guess. But grew up in a small town, Wareham, Massachusetts, which is the bridge to Cape Cod. From there, kind of got some community roots throughout going through high school, being in all the clubs, planning events and planning the prom, all those kinds of events. And then going to Assumption College for 2 years and then transferring to a public college because private college got way too pricey. So I then transferred to Bridgewater State University and graduated with a management degree with a concentration in marketing. So from there, I took my first job working for a nonprofit, Operation Homefront, which is a national nonprofit that serves military families. So it would provide critical financial assistance to active duty families. And then on the regional side of things, which my title was program coordinator. So I served New England and New York, that whole region, by planning events and just building outreach. So I would plan holiday meals for the military. So giving out turkey gift cards, boxes of stuffing, cans of all the yams and those kinds of products. And then back to school brigade is what they would call the event. So giving out filled backpacks to families who are in the Newport Navy base, that are in Fort Drum, New York, serving the active duty base there. So kind of building outreach there. Previous experiences, internships I've had at Bridgewater State University in their president's office planning events. And then I worked with Plymouth and Brockton Bus Company for some period as well through high school and college, which was part of their informal event planning party committee, planning events just within internally to kind of get the employees a little bit more excited and active. And I also managed the Attleboro's Hometown Trolley Instagram account, which kind of brought me to this position. So I saw it on LinkedIn. I worked at Operation Homefront for about 2 years, but wasn't really feeling the impact of the work I was providing. Being regional, I was only popping in for 2 days and then leaving. So I never could really see kids with their backpacks being used, making those stories. And it was just kind of weighing down on me a little bit that I wasn't seeing the impact of the work I was doing. So I found this opportunity. It was Catherine Fierick at the time who was hiring. And then with my social media experience as well as my event planning experience, I believe I was the best fit for the role and was hired to work for the city.
Well, I don't know who the other candidates were, but you were certainly a great fit
Thank you.
for the role. As someone who's been around a long time and advocated for people to play just the role that you have, I think you've done a fantastic job of informing the public. I always say, in this day and age, I mean, I've come up, I remember before we had any of the technology that we have today, we should be able to much better reach people and inform people than we have been. And why don't you share with us a little bit about some of the things you've done now that you've been here? What, you said almost 3 years?
Yes, So April will mark 3 years. Time has flown. I feel like there's still so much to do in terms of outreach and engagement. What I feel like I've been able to do in these past 2 years is really just outreach. So getting information out there. I hope in the future I can start working more on engagement, and which is having conversations with residents on what they want and their priorities, working well with the other departments on their kind of surveys, just so we can kind of provide more feedback. But what I've been able to do is, first thing I did was started an Instagram account and a Twitter account. We only had a Facebook account when we started, and it was not managed or effectively used. There's this fun thing, the algorithm, which is the Facebook Meta kind of term that manages the social media feed. So using that more effectively, where if people follow the city accounts, that they see them on their screens, and making content that is, well liked, and people will kind of stick on it for a little bit so that it shows up on other people's screens. It's this weird, finicky world that Facebook and Instagram have kind of created, but we're just living in it. And so working with Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which Twitter is now X, and X is now dying very slowly, but using that social media account as well. And then building a community newsletter. So while it is only online, it's still a tool to kind of give a brief glimpse of the month for people such as residents, business owners, community partners. So I list out a business spotlight, either highlighting a new business that has come to Attleboro or one that has kind of shown interest in, hey, I'd like more people knowing about me. And then a community spotlight. I do try to connect those to an event that's getting hosted. So say the Attleboro Arts Museum is hosting their auction. I'll make the community spotlight about the Attleboro Arts Museum so people prior to going to the event can learn a little bit more about the organization. List of events, and then I've been adding more and developing it more as the months and the years have gone on. So adding City Hall news, which is just updates from different departments. I reach out monthly to them. Hey, do you have anything you'd like to push out to residents? The collector's office will give me bill dates. The health department will give me vaccine clinic dates. Those kinds of things that residents should be in the know about. And then the last page is just resources. So working with our lovely nonprofit partners that are sharing resources within the community. Bristol Community College with their Mass Reconnect program, advertising that. The Clean Water Mass Saves program, advertising that as well. So kind of including all that information that's in there. And then the final tool that has been kind of started this year, a little bit into last year, is our Civic Ready program, which is our alert system. So people subscribe on the city's website, and then notifications get sent out to them directly, which is super beneficial, but we're low on subscribers, and I'm very shocked by that. So definitely more engagement is needed on that to get people to sign up.
And I laugh because I promised Mary I would sign up. But
You haven't
I
yet?
haven't yet, no.
It gets sent to your phone.
I promised her more than once I would sign up.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But
Before I leave today, we'll get you signed up.
Think of the value of that resource.
Yes.
And it's something that literally 20, 25 years ago was impossible.
Yeah.
But today, it's as easy as people saying, I want to get this information when it's necessary. I'm so intrigued because so much of what you're doing for the city is stuff that I've been working on developing business to do this for businesses, for profit. I mean, you've obviously recognized that there's a tremendous value in communicating with the public.
Yes.
And you seem to be so good at understanding how all these elements are linked together. Like you talk about, like with the algorithm
Yes.
of, because it's really about you have the information, but how do you get it to the right people in a way in which they can easily find it?
Yeah.
It's cool. So you've been sort of lured into being in charge of a lot of things in the time you've been at City Hall. You want to name a few of the different things that they've...
I like to say that my job has like two hats. So one of them is the communication, outreach, engagement aspect of it, which is definitely social media, the newsletter, civic alerts, the website updates when necessary, and creating content, which is, the images that you see with the social postings and flyers. And the other half is downtown events. So I was hired in the Economic Development Office to organize downtown events, to bring people into the downtown, to frequent our businesses, use our parks, use our public spaces, and get more comfortable with it so that they can come back and make it a little bit of a kind of attractive location. So within that realm, my first event that I ever created, which is my absolute favorite event and grew crazy this year, is the Downtown Trick or Treat. So that event is held in October, where participating businesses give out candy and trick or treat. So people will come in, grab a candy from a business, and then kind of go on their merry way to the different businesses. We saw about an estimate of 1,300 people this year, which is crazy because candy is expensive. But the event was great because you see people filling the streets again. I hear comments of, I didn't know there was a record store in Attleboro. Look at this tattoo shop. That is so cool. So it really kind of gets people more familiar in walking our downtown. We hear parking all the time. So if people find that walking is a little bit more accessible, they might be willing to park a little bit further down, and it might not be as hard of an issue as people advertise it to be.
Right. You've also been involved, again, your position is part of the Economic Development Office. You've also been part of that TDI
Yes.
board for downtown revitalization. Do you want to share a little bit of your experience with that at all?
Yeah, it's been great to meet with like-minded individuals who want to better our downtown and want to plan more programming, want to advertise what's going on. While my position is downtown events, I can only do so much as a city official to promote businesses as well. So working with people who kind of have more flexibility that can do more marketing for the downtown and just kind of push it forward and elevate it, such as the festoon lighting that came in. Lighting, we have had public meetings on downtown frequently. So lighting was always a concern and safety was a concern. So by adding the festoon lighting, it kind of shows that the city was listening in partnership with TDI and that they were able to provide some type of, answer to the problem. It's not a complete solution. Safety will always be a concern, but lighting helps people kind of see where they're going. It brightens the dark areas and people feel more safe walking around. And then through that, we got our downtown branding study, we did the wayfinding study, and as you may have noticed, driving into the downtown, we have a few new gateway signs, which is welcome to downtown Attleboro. So it's again, helping people recognize that they're in a destination where they can visit 2 museums, a wonderful library, a wonderful YMCA, and great businesses and restaurants too.
It really is. When people get out of their car and actually walk around, it is amazing how people will comment that they've seen something that's been there forever.
Yes,
they've just never noticed it because they, it's really funny. But you figured out how to get people. With your title, engagement, you've figured out how to get people out of their cars and actually get them into a location where they can actually interact with some of these businesses. Yeah, I mean, you talked about Halloween. A number of people have come. They were talking about that when I got my haircut the other day at Abel's.
Oh,
they
really?
were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So people do recognize that you and the city are really making strides to try to, how do I say it, draw people to the downtown in almost any way, shape, form we can think of.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a good part of it is, one, the wayfinding, it makes people find things easier. With the events, it brings people who maybe not would have come for just like a generic library event, but if you tie it to something else, then people might want to come more so because of it. The library does great programming, no shade to them, but it has a certain audience, so just expanding on that.
Well, and that's a great point. When you start providing people multiple opportunities on the same trip per se, it benefits everyone. That's good. So again, you've been here 3 years and you've done a lot. Are there some ambitions you have in the near future, ideas that you think you want to see happen soon?
Yeah, so I think event programming, I think I've got a good stream of yearly events. So that was a good focus for the first 2 years, was kind of building those out, finding funding sources for them.
Because there's only so many you can
There's only so much you can do, and then you lose traction on one if you put more energy into another. So I definitely, this next year, want to push more on the wayfinding, so get more signs installed that are actual directionals, actual identifiers for certain establishments. Like certain parking lots don't really state what they are. The Gilbert Perry Square parking lot doesn't have a sign that it's municipal free parking. So getting more of those promoted, and then engagement more. So reaching our minority groups, building up Civic Ready, getting more subscribers on that system so people can stay in the know, and just kind of building engagement, working with more businesses, more nonprofits to kind of build their awareness.
That's really good. Do you find a lot of people from the community, like business people, reaching out to you, asking, how can you help them?
Yes, definitely, and more specifically in our downtown, of course. They choose the downtown location for the foot traffic, and with TDI being a partner, it's a great resource for them. So it helps get us connected quickly. But I do have a few that reach out, they're new, they come in and they see us in the Economic Development Office, and we can kind of provide them with those resources. A lot of them just like awareness. So it's just saying, hey, we can build you up here, but here are some other tools that you can use to build this business up for yourself as well.
That's really great. And so this is your first real involvement in municipal government.
Yes, yeah.
So you it must be interesting to work around a variety of people and deal with the mayor. I imagine at least some of the city councilors must interact somewhat with what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, how have you found all that?
Yeah, I've actually, so in my previous position, because it's interesting, like I'm in the economic development office, which is attached to the mayor's office, but you've also got the residents and the counselors who, you know, are the hearers of everything that's going on, and, you know, people who have decisions and kind of actions that they'd like to see. In my previous position, I also had multiple report to, so I feel like I was very familiar with I have to report to this person, and this person. So I've kind of felt a similar kind of vibe there, energy there, but it's interesting, I didn't realize how opinionated people were, and that is one thing I learned very quickly with social media as well. At the hem of it, I see all the comments, and it's just, you really see how much people care loudly is kind of the words we use in my office, so yeah.
That's a really positive way of spinning it.
Yes.
And one of the things that first intrigued me with some of the early on work you did about sharing information on the city's site in a non-biased, non-political way. You know, I mean, again, I've been involved in politics for 3 decades, and almost everything seems political to me. But you had a way of sharing information about what the mayor was doing, what this person was doing, without having like a political spin on it.
Yeah.
And I thought that required a really good grasp both of the language, but also of the understanding of how people perceive things.
Yeah, I think it's just understanding who your audience is, even, you know, with the water conservation postings that have been going out, kind of understanding people are going to want to see this and they're not going to want to see that, but the information still needs to get out there. So just finding a way to meet the audience where they are, because you kind of have a gist of what people want to see and what they don't want to see, especially based on engagement on the social media posts. You can kind of track that. So, you know, spinning it in a way or just rewording it in a way that seems kind of more digestible by the audience.
Now, I imagine from your point of view, in your office, like every other government office, you could use more staff. You have more ideas and things you'd like to do than any 2 people in one office could ever possibly do. Is there anything you're working on now that people are going to see in the near future? Anything you want to promote? To get people to participate in?
I just have some events coming up, and that's been at the forefront of my mind right now, which is the Holiday Stroll on December 14th. That, again, is another downtown business engagement event. People will get a passport, get stamps from our local businesses, and then win a free downtown branded beanie. And then also the Winter Night Fest, that is coming up in February of next year. I took over a major portion of planning that about last year I took over that. So it's been kind of reworking it, especially with drought conditions, reworking it, and trying to get the event to be as family friendly as possible.
That's great. That's great. And as you said, there's a limit to how many events a community can do.
Yeah.
Have you gotten a lot of suggestions from the public as to, hey, why don't you do this?
Yes.
Why don't you do that?
Can I answer one right now?
Absolutely.
Wednesday night markets. I hear that over and over, and I see it over and over. And while it's a great community event, I've never been, but I just hear so many positive things about it, and clearly there's a passion for it. It's almost impossible to do with having to close the streets and police details. We used to have the auxiliary unit that would be able to kind of close the streets for a very discounted, if not free rate. We just can't do that nowadays. And especially with the different format of businesses in our downtown, they used to be more retail focused, the shoe shop, those kinds of things. We just don't have that focus anymore. So we've shifted from Wednesday night markets. Maybe we'll do a vendor market at some point. I've tried doing a couple. They're not super successful, but finding a way to meet the residents where they are with the Wednesday night markets is a goal.
and in your defense of the whole Wednesday night market, because I was around when that began.
Yeah.
And I was involved in one way or another for most. And as Mayor Robbins used to say, people love to remember things nostalgically the way they never were.
Yes, yeah.
The number of problems that went on with the Wednesday night market behind the scenes, and the number of businesses that would actually close at lunchtime on Wednesday because the Wednesday night market would prohibit their business from functioning.
Really?
People forget about all of that.
Yeah.
It's nice. I mean, there was definitely some enjoyable times to it, which is why I went frequently. But there were also, like anything else, there were some negative challenges. Those are the things that people oftentimes don't see, and those are sometimes the things that prohibit it from going forward in the future. Now that everything has become a little bit more difficult to coordinate. As you said, we don't have the auxiliary police the way we once did. And actually literally closing down the roads in the center of town today with the traffic issues isn't the same as it was in the early 1990s
Yeah.
or even in the 2000s.
Yeah, and just the way to Sturdy. You go straight
Right.
through under the train bridge under Park Street. So it would
Yeah.
be prohibiting people's emergency hospital access too. So
Yeah, and it was, that was an experience.
I can
in and of
imagine.
itself. But, how can, if people say, you're doing a great job, but they want to help or contribute in some way, how would people get a hold of you in order to be able to?
Yeah, there's a couple different formats. So I do manage the city social media accounts. So an instant direct message to the city socials, Facebook, Instagram, as well as X, Twitter. You can reach out there. My email is readily available, kfurtado@cityofattleboro.us. You can reach out to me email, as well as my office line, which is extension 3208. And you can reach out to me those kind of different ways. Even if you see me at an event, I've generally got the event staff badge on. Feel free to stop me, pull me, anything like that. I'm often walking around downtown as well, so you can always just chat about whatever way you'd like to help, or just even kind of give ideas for events as well.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think there are probably some people out there with really good ideas,
Yes.
but they know that they could never coordinate it. I mean, the organizational skills that you have are not, maybe not rare, but they're not as common as we would like. So I'm sure, hopefully there'll be people who have some interesting ideas who
Yeah.
can reach out to you.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we have a pretty diverse community, right? You said you've lived a number of different places. I think you probably have found Attleboro to be a community that has a diverse makeup of people and ideas.
Yeah, it's definitely growing and changing as well. So you keep kind of seeing the different people show up to events, and then when they show up to events, which events attract them. So it's kind of interesting to note that too within the community. So yeah.
So I mean, we talked about the whole Halloween thing, but why don't you name a couple of the events you've done that have been overwhelmingly successful? 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm sure you got a list, but there must be a couple that you've said, wow, that turned out way better than I could have.
Yeah, there's a couple, and there's actually quite a couple too where I'm like, that was a total drag. Why? So the overly successful ones is the Downtown Trick or Treat, of course. Within its third year, 1,300 people was great. Winter Night Festival, that was huge the first year attending it, and then the first year organizing it was you could barely walk around. It was that busy. And then we've got Spring Fling, which is held in April. That's a really well-attended event. And I did organize the laser show this past year, which is a well-attended event with a very different feedback. And
I enjoyed it.
yes,
I mean,
yeah.
I was right on the football field where
Yes.
it looked great.
Yeah.
And I guess apparently if you weren't on the field, it
Yes.
wasn't as exciting. but-
Lessons learned with that one for sure. There was definitely communication that could have been, had with attendees prior to, saying, "Hey, you need to sit here."
Right.
More broadcasted than it initially was. But we are moving away from the laser show, working with a 4th of July volunteer committee. So hopefully we are able to get fireworks next year. So that's really great. Events that were underwhelming, which I think is just kind of interesting to note, is vendor markets in downtown. I've hosted a couple in Cuddy Court.
Yep.
Not that many attendees, and then concerts. People kept mentioning that they'd like live music in our downtown, and I had hosted a couple throughout a fall series, and not that many people came out for them. So I was kind of shocked to see those line up the way they did in terms of like people wanting things and then not necessarily showing out for them.
I mean, it's going to be tough because you're often at the mercy of the weather, right? I mean,
yes, yeah.
almost everything that you've coordinated has been outdoors, right?
Yes, yeah.
Not really, you don't know 3 months ahead of time what the weather's going to be like on a given night.
Yes, and rain dates are really important for that. I know with this last year's Spring Fling, I was pushing it with the weather a little bit. It was raining right up until the hour of the event, right before the event, and then it was clear the rest of the day. So there's certain days where you can push it and other days where you have to cancel it. The trick or treat last year, the whole Saturday, downpours. So I had to reschedule it for the Sunday, and we still had a really great turnout for the Sunday, but less businesses just because they weren't open on Sunday.
Now, one of the things I wonder is the information that you're putting out there for the city. Do you have a fair amount of interaction with most of the department heads, most of the other, let's call them city boards and commissions? A lot of those people reach out and share information with you.
Yeah, it was definitely a learning curve for some time. I had to kind of keep working with certain departments because they never had that tool before.
Right. It's
So
new, yeah.
they could have been there for 10, 20 years and not have that kind of avenue to use prior. But now they're calling me and emailing me, "Hey, I've got this going out. Like, you're the best. You know how to do it. Can you get it out for me?" So most departments are familiar with what I do and they use me as a tool. Certain ones don't need to get information out pretty regularly, like the accounting department. They don't often have to share their stuff out. But the departments such as planning, the water department very regularly.
That was exactly what I was thinking. Water,
Yeah.
the water and the sewer and the public works when there's an issue.
With road closures, yes,
Right.
I'm often working with Chief Hagney. When there's a road closure, he'll let me know and I can post it out. So just, it was a while for me kind of getting in there, but now they use me pretty regularly. And it's been great because Kathleen's been pushing it as well, the mayor, saying, hey, if you got something to send out, make sure you have Kaylyn involved. So.
I always laugh whenever people refer to the mayor by her first name.
Oh, sorry.
I'm so old,
I think you mentioned this
I'm so
before,
old
yeah.
and formal that she's my close friend, but I've never referred to her as anything other than mayor.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny. But
Yeah.
times change. It shows the transition of what we consider appropriate nowadays.
Sorry.
No, don't feel sorry. All right, well, we've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
What would you like to share with the public that we haven't had an opportunity to, or what would you like to reinforce about what you do and how you hope to help the city and how people could contribute?
Yeah, so I guess just one thing is just always, there's only so much we can do to push information out. So we've got all these different avenues. I've put flyers in, grocery stores, restaurants, all that kind of stuff. But there comes a point where people need to follow and kind of inform themselves as well. So just meeting us where we are. So I hear a lot of things saying, oh, well, not everyone follows the social media accounts. Not everyone has internet. But there are some avenues where they could follow AACS for information. They could go to the grocery store and sign up for the alerts with just clicking a QR code or putting in a URL with a family member. There's a lot of different avenues that we are trying to reach out. And I'd be happy for feedback on what works best for them, what doesn't work best for them. Even in the newsletter, I've been doing surveys annually saying, what information do you want to see here? And I think that's part of the engagement part, which is gaining insight into what they want to see, what they want to know. Our social media account has Facebook specifically and Instagram. I do 2 posts a day throughout the 5 days. There's a lot of information that needs to get out there, and oftentimes I'm having to push things back or post 3 times a day, which doesn't help with our engagement. But it's a lot of information that needs to get out there. So follow our different channels, follow on the alert subscription service. There's a lot going on in Attleboro. As you had mentioned, there was kind of this deficit of information prior to me starting. And people kept saying, there's not a lot going on in Attleboro. There's not anything going on in Attleboro, which yes, with COVID, there wasn't. Right. But things were growing, things were coming back. And part of my job is just pushing it out there so people are familiar with those things. So. Yeah.
Because, I heard people saying there wasn't anything going on 10 years ago.
Yeah.
When there was activity, you just didn't always hear about it as readily. I've talked for years about how, and I think one of the things that government needs to do better and more clearly is to communicate with people. Usually people who are upset about something, it's because they're poorly informed.
Yes, yeah.
And so I think in everyone's best interest, the more we can get information out to the public, the better we are. Well, in the short time we have left, I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on here and for all the good work you do. Because, again, you were basically starting from scratch. That couldn't have been easy. It's never easy to change, especially in government.
Yeah.
And this was a big step forward.
Yeah.
And I appreciate all that you've done. And hopefully people out there now can be thinking about ways in which maybe they can contribute in some way to make what you're doing even better for the community.
No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about kind of the city socials and the city kind of events going on the fun side of things, but happy to kind of reach out more. There was such a deficit before, definitely need more to do, so.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for tuning in again to this episode of People It's Good to Know. There are so many people out there who want to volunteer and find a way in which they can help.
We've got some brilliant people that have come out of the school system here in Attleboro.
You actually perform as an elected official the way people should.
There are no agendas. Nobody has any projects that they have to complete, but we're just sharing information